Mr. Rudy, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Morning.
Just to get a sense first, we've had an interesting problem. I mean, I don't think it's interesting, but we've had a problem of farmer suicides. It highlights a larger problem that we have a large part of the population which is exposed to agriculture, but is actually contributing very less to the country's GDP. Now, what this means is that there are not enough people and there are not enough skills and there's not enough job absorption.
I think absolutely, this would not be the right connotation. Agriculture as a domain has about good 250 to 300 million people working there. The skills are very different from the skills which you're talking about when you talk about manufacturing.
I'm trying to contextualize
So that's an issue which needs to be addressed on a bigger platform on issues related to agriculture. We also have an Agriculture Sector Skill Council, which is talking about developing skills in the agriculture sector. But the overall requirement for the country is that you have to create wealth. And for wealth, you have to go for manufacturing. That means the industrial growth rate has to come up. When you're talking about Make in India, you're talking about industry. And industrial growth and Make in India will only happen if you have skilled India. Now, for Skill India, we have started, it's fortunate that the Prime Minister has created this ministry. And if you look at if you compare the world as far as the skilled workforce is concerned, China is with a population of 1.4 billion people would have around 45% of the population which is skilled. UK would be around 68 to 70% of the workforce which is skilled. Japan, about 80% of the workforce is skilled. Germany, 74%. Korea, 96% of the workforce is skilled. India is just 2%. And we have started 66 years late and we have lagged on this, but we started talking about it because all these years, 66 years, we have been talking about education and education-linked employment. So we need a paradigm shift, that change is taking place. And this is a major challenge which the country is facing. And at least for the first time in India, it's not that skill was not happening, it was happening, but it was not happening in a structured way, in a standardized way. Right. Well, that was the challenge which we need to put
couple of points. So I think one is that if you look at the global manufacturing environment, I mean, is manufacturing in a position to absorb so much jobs, considering manufacturing itself is going through change? Second question, I mean, I've been talking to a lot of business people, industrialists in the last 4 weeks. All of them say that Indian manufacturing is still to reach the 2012 peak capacity in manufacturing. Most of Indian industry is still at 60 to 70%. Now, this is a short-term problem, granted, but the medium to long term still looks bleak. I mean, you have the challenge of technology changing. Most at least the forward-looking industry captains are acknowledging that the number of manufacturing units would either come down or even if they expand in capacity, the number of jobs will not be commensurate. So I'm just wondering whether, are you thinking...
Well, when you talk about jobs do not come from large investments. Jobs come from entrepreneurship, small entrepreneurs. Sure. So that's a different Fair debate point. And it's been proved across the world. But manufacturing has to grow and it has to go up from 12% to good around 20% if that has to happen. Now, this is one of the biggest. In China, about 400 million people were moved from the farm sector to the farm to factories. So this possibly is required in India. We need to create that much capacity.
It's required, but there is increasing skepticism on whether it's the right way.
Well, that's a different issue. Yeah. These are the challenges which we have to address. Sure. So once we have marked these challenges, I'm sure we're going to go forward. But I can tell you, as far as skill development is concerned, it is going to take a big shape. We already set up a roadmap. We are going to roll out a policy in this year we're going to roll out the National Skill Development Policy. It's a mission for the Prime Minister. And it connects almost each and every, with this large demography which we are talking about. And we are talking about demographic dividends, which is about for 450 million people. This aspect has to be addressed. And thanks to the Prime Minister that we've started addressing the issue of skills.
Let me put a different question to you. You've been at this job for a while now.
No, not for a while, only for 5 months.
Okay, 5 months.
And this ministry has come into existence for the first time in the history of India in 66 years. Right. So this is what you must remember, that this is a very important assignment given to me. The Prime Minister thought about it. We have started focusing on it, but it has started 66 years late.
Yeah, fair point. So what's the sense that you get? I mean, this is more a personal question, right? So
it's a big challenge.
You hold a skill
the
yourself.
Biggest challenge is putting the standards across and match it to the international standards. Even if it's a 2-month course, it should have a standard, it should have an assessment, it should have a certification. It should be matched to the requirement of the industry. What we are doing so far is we are not matching it to the needs of the industry. So that is one of the biggest challenges, and that's why we are creating the QPs, the sector skill councils across board, and there are 33 sector skill councils which have been authorized to issue create the syllabus or the QPs and the national occupation standards, and thereafter proceed further to get the process of training, assessment, and certification.
Right. And what's the, if I were to ask you to list the 1 or 2 key challenges ahead for yourself?
Resources.
Okay.
Major is trainers. We lack trainers. We had teachers, we did not have trainers. The biggest challenge is trainers. The second is resources for training. The third is mobilization, and then and to make it aspirational, because people want to get degrees, but they don't want to become a plumber or a carpenter or a craftsman. So that is the biggest challenge.
And what's your sense on how you're going to be, how your ministry is going to be addressing this in?
I have almost a blueprint for all these issues. We have earmarked the challenges there, and we have a clear roadmap for the industry. We are rolling out the policy, partnership with the states. Some of the states are doing a very good job, like Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Gujarat for that matter, Kerala. Many of the states are doing a good job. So, Uttar Pradesh for that matter.
Yeah. So last question. I mean, you use the China manufacturing example. My question is, assuming things don't go that way, right? I'm assuming there is no. What are the other ideas that are being thrown up in the system?
There cannot be an assumption. This is a challenge which has to be met. There can't be assumption.
No, because the country has to be demand, right? I mean, what if you don't?
No, this all goes in contingent to the 8% growth, or maybe if you want to bring it in double-digit growth. All this will complement it.
Yeah. No, my question is not on the growth. The growth we might achieve. My question is, will we ever see that kind of demand for manufacturing capacity in India that we hope there will be?
There is already an existing demand, irrespective whether it is for the manufacturing sector or not. But there is a demand. But manufacturing comes along with a lot of investment, foreign funds flow, innovation. So it's just not one single aspect.
No, it isn't.
But one of the most essential ingredient and human ingredient is skilled workforce, which we have to create for the industry.
Right. So what's your sense on let me ask you the question I asked earlier, right? What are the kind of ideas that you're seeing which are perhaps a little different from what you've seen?
For example, trainers. And there's a huge dearth of trainers. About 50,000 young armed forces personnel retire every year below the age of 38, 39. So they have a lot of skills in the armed forces. So in the young age, 19th years of service, we put them to training, and there's an MOU being signed with the Ministry of Defense. Similarly, to capitalize on the Indian Railways, which has a huge infrastructure for virtual training at railway stations, we are tapping this 43,000 kilometers of optical fiber network, which is there at dedicated stations and with electricity and infrastructure. So there are a lot of out-of-box solutions coming up. But at the end of the day, we require a lot of huge resources. And today, when we talk about skilling, and when we talk about 50 crore people, or maybe even let's slash it to half, 25 crore people in the next 5 years, that would mean at an average cost of 20,000 rupees, we require about 5 lakh crores. And that should have happened in last 60 years. So, but we have to pull in resources. The demand is huge. There's demand for skilled workforce. Everything in this studio is all skilled. May not be a degree, but you require actual skilled people to run the show. Right. And that is what we want. Yours is a different skill, which is actually based on a lot of education. But everyone in this room requires the other skill, which may not come from a degree in the college or university.
Right. So absolutely last question. So you possess a skill yourself. You are a trained pilot, right? What would you tell people? I mean, a lot of young people aspire.
This is basically everyone has. When I was a child, I wanted to become an auto mechanic. Then I wanted to become a train driver. I finally landed up becoming a pilot, and I fly big planes. So it's an aspiration which must be built up in an individual. And of course, education was a part all throughout. And then finally, I got into politics. So I think that aspiration of an individual, and all those people which we are mobilizing in the villages, and I'm interacting with them, 7th, 8th, 9th dropouts, they are so happy to come and get skilled. Maybe education was never a priority. But if you see visuals in Bihar, where the entire building is swarming with people trying to assist their colleagues and friends in examination. That is why, because education has been linked to employment, degree, government establishment, and so forth. So the moment we move it towards skills, possibly a lot of problems in this country can be sorted out.